So I recently had some trouble with my Prologue. It wouldn't switch on correctly. Partway through the tuning process, the screen would get all flaky. And then it basically all the screens would go blank, none of the lights would come on, and no sound. We did a little bit of troubleshooting on it. Power supply seemed like it was good. Power was getting everywhere it should, at least up to the voice boards. I did a software update and it is about 90% reliable at this point. I'm not really sure what made the difference there. Occasionally I still have trouble with the LED display for the multi-engine being a little bit scrambled, but everything is working. All the buttons work, keys work, sounds work. I can scroll through all the sounds. That's not a problem. So hopefully it just continues to perform like it's supposed to. Now that that's back together and I've had a little more time with the Polysix, I thought it would be interesting to see if I could make them sound similar to one another or just see how close they could get. This wasn't a scientific experiment, but just kind of, eyeballing the controls. Obviously there are some differences in the architecture, but I did what I could to kind of even the playing field between the two. So the synthesizers are nearly 40 years apart in their ages. So anyway, I thought it was a pretty fun thing to do. I hope you'll find it interesting. So what I'll do is I'll explain each test. I think I have 5 of them all together that I tried. Just some different, again, comparisons from one to the other. And so I'll interject in between each of those to kind of explain what's going on. So a couple of things to note. First one is I only worked with the saw wave. I didn't try anything else today. And I may do that in the future, but again, just for ease and kind of just staying real basic, I just chose the one wave and stayed with that. I only used one oscillator on the Prologue since the Polysix only has one. Again, just to kind of see if I could make them sound close. So for the first experiment, basically the only thing you're going to hear is just a flat saw wave from one to the other. The filters are wide open, and then the filters will be swept on both synthesizers, so you'll hear one the other. I won't have any notes on the screen, but you'll be able to see which ones I'm playing when. So anyway, here's the first. All right, so one of the things that made the Polysix popular in its day was, I believe, the chorus effect in particular, but the ensemble effect, I think, has gotten a lot of acclaim over time. But at any rate, there's a chorus, phaser, and ensemble effects setting on the Polysix, and the Prologue also has each of those. So for this next set of sounds, I wanted to try to get those as close to one another as they could. And to be honest, this was one of the tougher tries I had of trying to match things up. One of the things I noticed is that when you turn the effects on the Polysix, at least on the one I have, it seems to dull down the sound overall. So in other words, it's not as bright. That's something the Prologue didn't really seem to have trouble with. So you'll hear that as we move through this next section. All right, the next thing I did was I took both synthesizers and put them in unison mode to hear the differences there. You'll notice the Polysix has a really big sound, a wide sound. My belief would be that's just from the not quite tuned up oscillators or voices and voice chips. I'm sorry, inside the Polysix, whereas the Prologue, being a newer instrument, I think is a little more finely tuned. So it does seem like when you put them in unison mode, the Polysix really kind of roars at that point, which is great. It sounds wonderful. So what I did for this one is put them both in unison mode, and then I brought the resonance up to 50% on each, and then just ran through a filter sweep. And here's what that sounds like. Okay, the next section was trying to build an envelope on each that would sound the same. It was interesting because as I worked the settings, I thought I got there. I thought I was pretty close. And then I went back and listened to it again afterwards. After I'd stopped recording, I just played both synthesizers again and noticed they weren't as close as I thought. The Polysix was a little duller sounding, I thought, than the Prologue. So I didn't get them super close. In hindsight, I should have listened a little better. But anyway, here's what that sounds like. The last thing I did was basically maintain that envelope I just set up on both of the synthesizers, but then added some Big Sky reverb for some fun, and then kind of played them together right at the end. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this comparison between the two. It's really interesting to try to match one synthesizer to the other, and I hope to do some more with these two synths in the future, some more comparisons. I'd like to do some work with the arpeggiators maybe together, but that'll take a little more learning on my part as far as syncing those up. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love to have you around and part of the conversation here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.